They just may have more than one trustee, obviously.
It's a little bit big up in there, yeah.
Hey, Doc.
But we'll have a lot more.
Yeah.
That are more public areas, or the CO breakdowns of locker rooms and stuff. So.
Yeah. Actually do know. Yeah. Just make the quorum, huh? Is that all we're at? We do now.
I think Addie's in Mexico.
Mexico?
Yeah.
You can make her time.
I need to make it.
Hour of 8:30 hadn't arrived. I will call this meeting of the County Committee order.
We have, let's see, open meeting law requirements have been met through proper posting. We have a 13-item agenda.
Move to approve.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. We have a public comment period. The number is on the agenda incorrect. The new number is 715-538-1894. If someone wishes to call in, their comments should be confined to items on the agenda. And so we'll go from there. Number 6 on the agenda, the Samuels Group. Kurt?
Before that, I'll approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for being awake.
I was just gonna say.
You want a second?
I'll
that?
second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Now, Kurt.
Morning, everyone. Oh, did I get turned that on? Morning, everyone. So we got lots to get through with you today. I want to go over FF&E budget, some pricing that we got on some furniture options. We've got an update on the contingency, and then some discussion on the department meetings. So let's start there, and if you don't mind if I go out of order on your agenda.
I do not
But I
mind.
have reached out to the department heads, and we tentatively have March 20th slated as our first round of meetings with them to have one-on-one meetings with each department. We won't get it all done in one day, so I want to get through the 20th and see who we can fit in that day, and then we'll have to have a follow-up meeting. Ventures team won't be able to meet until after the into the first week of April. So I wanted to get one before one of their members went on vacation, and then we'll wrap that up when they get back in April. So to kind of explain to you the process that will happen is we'll meet with those departments individually. Last time when we were here, we carved out the location of where they're going to be. You guys approved to put together a design document that would be complete of all of the renovation to bid it out yet this fall. So we'll be going department by department, going through their design and the layout of their space. And then obviously before we put it out to bid, we'll bring you guys back in. I was going to keep you and Audie in the loop like we did last time, so that you are welcome to attend those meetings if you'd like to. If other members wanted to attend them, I think we'd have to deal with a quorum. So right now, if it's just the two of you, unless you guys wanted to change that, just let me know. So any questions on that design process? No, we're good with that? Okay.
Tim?
One behind, we had a department head meeting, may I address the group?
Most certainly.
There was a department head meeting, was that last week? Yeah, it's been a long week. And two things came from that. The first was they expressed the desire to meet as a group with the architects, because we all have to work together. When one wins, the other loses. It's kind of a zero-sum game, and being a present for all the deliberations and discussions felt like a better way to move through it. There was really no expectations of interdepartmental violence. Everybody's working well together, so we didn't see a reason to break it all out into 20 different meetings with everyone. So they wanted that brought forward to this committee. The other one was they were looking for some guidance from Property Committee on priorities, because we're seeing this design as being all over the place. Some departments are moved closer to the front because there's customer needs, like ADRC and veterans have aged populations visiting them. Others wanted to be towards the front of the building entrance because of amount of traffic, but we really don't have any data on that. Some departments were designed with future in mind, where 4 extra positions someday will exist. Other departments that don't fit in their space now are getting less space. So they want to know, what is the priority? Is it form and function? Is it making sure everybody has enough space for their needs? Is it money only that you're considering in this process? What are your priorities when trying to provide guidance to them for this discussion? That was 2 things that came up.
I take the lead on a couple of them.
Thank you, Tim. Yes.
I guess I would take the request for meeting with the entire group, and I guess I can explain the process, is that I don't know how efficient that would be, and I guess it doesn't matter if they all attend, but quite frankly, to sit through an entire day of meetings when we're going to talk to each individual department, I don't see the benefit in that. We specifically had the meeting with all of the departments to identify where those departments were located prior to the committee taking action on that. If there is a request for that to be changed, I think that should come before the committee before we start the design, because we left those meetings that both of you attended, that we were all in agreement as to the location of those spaces. Now, to address the question in regards to growth, I think that is a valid question, because some of the spaces that we have identified, we're kind of fitting them into a space that already exists, right? So I think it would be good for some direction from the committee if we are to plan for a 10 or 15-year growth pattern, or if we want to design it for their current needs for each department. I think that's a fair request. But if individuals want to attend those individual meetings, I can let them know when they are, and if they want to be somebody in the audience, so to speak, and listen to the discussion, by all means. But I do not intend to have a discussion of 20 people designing someone else's department. Doesn't work. Don't do it that way. We will talk to each department about their needs, and we could talk about adjacencies. But it will not be efficient to have everybody in the room making comments on someone else's department. So I think the question is valid in regards to how do you want to design this? Do you want to plan for growth for the next 5 to 10 years? Do you want it longer than that? And some of that is hard to predict, but there are some departments that know that they need growth, and we could have some direction on that. Would be good.
I think in that regard, as to future growth, the health department is a good example. They currently do not have the staff that they had 10, 15 years ago, and I've been trying to get some feeling for, does the county have plans to fill those slots, or are they going to be, the health department expected to operate at their current levels, because it will have a direct reflection on how much space they need. If we're going to go back to, and of course there's not just one thing at work here. We're currently experiencing a lot of difficulty filling positions. I personally think if a position goes unfilled for a while, do we need to look at that position to see if it's actually necessary? And beyond that, we just need, in this example, need to make up our collective minds as to, are we going to refill those spots? And if so, that would mandate the space requested. If not, perhaps too much space is assigned to public health. And health department's not the only one we need to do that with. So
Just a comment, and also I think we're very fortunate that we're going to have room for down several years.
Yeah.
We'll have the space, and I think we're truly looking at numbers right now and feel very fortunate that at some point, if we have to move things around, we can.
Yeah, I do think that the one department that I would say that we've kind of backed into space would be Human Services, and that's something I've addressed with you guys before. We have a lot of staff in that department, and we need to figure out, make sure we have enough space there and then growth for those areas. The rest of those departments, I think, if we would take it case by case, and I think, David, I'm going to kind of address some things you've talked about a couple of months ago, is that it's hard to forecast for 30 years, right? So for us to say that we're going to find a 30-year solution for staff is probably it's not realistic from some of these departments. But if we look at maybe a 5 to 10, if they know that there are some elements that are coming up, because it's going to take us some time to build that we wouldn't want to get done and then find out that we're short an office or two for a department. So I think it would be fair for us to give direction to the departments to do a 5 to 10 year forecast on growth, so that we're addressing those needs. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, Dan, is how do we know if some of them are going to be filled and what do we have space for those? So.
Maybe I get to speak too here today. I wonder if we can extend that to 5 to 15.
Sure.
And the other thing is, Dan pointed out, we have historically, if we had 10 people in a department, we historically stayed at 10 or we increased by and large. And I think Dan makes a good point, and that is that, and this is not necessarily something for the property committee. Well, it ties into all this to some degree, that every time there is a decrease in a department staffing, one needs to look to see if that should be filled. That should be handled by someone who's very well acquainted with the department and who is objective. But I think the idea of extending it a little bit beyond that is appropriate, since we do have the space, as Doc, you alluded to there, to deal with. I guess that's it. Oh, one more comment. Human Services, I'm chair of that committee, and over the last 20-some years that I've been either on the board or acquainted with board action, that department has grown very significantly. And I don't know how long that can continue. We are providing staff space for people who don't work just in this county. They work in, I think, 3 counties, possibly. We're providing space for those folks. If those of you who were not on back years ago, Human Services paid rent, or the state paid rent for space. And the board was convinced to change that and to allow that money to go into people programs. Human Services is a state agency, basically. I mean, we provide space, they provide the guidance and the direction and demands on that department. I have some really mixed feelings about the department in terms of the county has very little control. But I don't know if they have no idea. They get offered a position or two due to a certain cause or issue, and they take it, and it grows. So how long that's going to continue? This state, I have to say, this state has a very large human service program, and I'm not saying as in a negative sense at all, but it is very unusual, I think, to have the number of staff we have.
Yeah, point is well taken, and right now I know that they exist and function with a couple of staff in one office that is very cramped and is inefficient, and those are the sorts of things that we need to address. I just bring that up because I know that's one of the areas that, if I'm going to look at all the departments, that when we looked at this revised solution, we need to make sure that we have enough space in there so that they can each have an individual office, and then also some hoteling, like you've talked about, meaning that if they come in, they periodically work here and they leave, that is being utilized so that it's efficiently used. So those things will be talked about at the department approach. So are you all comfortable, the request from the department heads to have the group meet? I will send an invite to everyone as to what the schedule is so that they can attend if they want to, but the focus of the period of time that we carve that out will be for that given department, and that will be the direction. It's the only way they're going to be effective and efficient on putting this design together. If individuals want to voice their opinion, we'll hear it while we go through the design, but I don't think that a collaboration of design for everybody to be around a table is very effective, and that's the direction that I would give you recommendation and lead this charge. So, everyone good with that? Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll move forward with getting March 20th scheduled, and then I will look to find a second date after the 1st of April to keep that moving along. And like I said, we're at the end of just basically a schematic design, so we need to get through design development, which will be finalizing a floor plan. Once that floor plan has been finalized, we'll bring it back to you guys. We'll also then have department heads sign off on, and then at the end of DD, then we'll go into construction documents, and the construction documents is where we start to finalize the mechanical, electrical, and the finishes of that. So all of those phases of design still need to be done, so there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done on those elements. So, all right, to kind of go over the funding item on your agenda, Dan, I do have an update on our FF&E budget, so I have several handouts to give to the group, and then we can go through that. This. You guys want a copy? Copy all three again. Yep. All right, so I've handed out 3 documents to you there. The first one is a floor plan. That's the one that obviously has the yellow colorings on there. The second one is a furniture budget. And the other one is an FF&E summary. So maybe I'll start with the FF&E summary. It's the white one. And as you're all aware of, we have an FF&E budget that's been established at the $870,000. What the FF&E covers is fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. Now, those are those elements that are outside of the building and connected to the building, so to speak, but still are essential for the functioning and the operation of the facility. I'm going to talk about all of the budget here on that summary. As you'll see that in this, out of this $870,000, we're still carrying a $50,000 allowance, and we're just calling it IT or just kind of a electronic support. So we need to carry a $50,000 allowance because as we start to occupy the building, there will need to be a survey that's done to make sure that we have enough coverage inside the building with all the steel and concrete for cell phones and Wi-Fi and all of those elements. Also, if there are any elements from the electronic perspective that need to be addressed to support the move-in, that it's good placeholder for the FF&E element. So there isn't an itemized list on that, but it's a placeholder for an allowance of IT that we may need when we go to occupy. We also have down the relocation of the, Baycom is relocation of dispatch. So right now, we've got, this is a preliminary number from Baycom, of the 17,533. So this is really their movement of the equipment from the existing location into the new location in the addition. The next item that's in there is laundry and food service. For those of you that weren't on the board when we bid out the project, we had a bid amount for our food service equipment and the laundry. So what that means is everything that's in the kitchen and the jail and in the laundry. It was over $300,000, and because of the budget constraints that we had, we actually pulled it out of the project budget, and it was going to be something that was going to be funded by the sheriff's, forget the name of your...
Jail assessment and SCAP.
Jail assessment and SCAP, because there was some money in that that account, and the projection was that we would be able to cover that value. Well, that value that was in that account is less than what we had anticipated, so the $210,000 for laundry and food will have to be allocated to this FF&E element that's in here. So a portion of it is going to be coming from the sheriff's. I think right now you have 100 and...
So we have, the balance of the jail assessment at right now is about 120,000. We'll know that for sure when the audit is done. SCAP balance is about 50,000, and we have 23,000 coming in yet for the previous 2 years. Total balance for those non-lapsing funds is about $203,000. So, and that's there will be contributions made during the year this year too, but we won't realize those till the end of the year. So.
Sure.
Okay.
So the element associated with this is that portion of that laundry and food service is going to be funded by one of the sheriff's accounts, and then their balance of this will be from the FF&E. Now, I will say that there was FF&E dollars that was allocated in here for other elements, like new clothing and those sorts of things for the jail. The sheriff is taking care of those elements, so it helped the FF&E balance from those elements. So from the laundry and the food service, we're able to cover the equipment in the inside this number.
If you know, the laundry and food, are we gonna bring over the current washer and dryer?
Yes.
That we have,
Correct.
that's considered in that number?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, and maybe you're gonna hit on this, but we do have one number we're waiting to get from
Yes.
Baycom. The Baycom number you see on top there, the 17,533, that's for moving radio equipment. We just found out recently that our phone provider has been bought out, and it's unknown if they or Baycom will be moving our 911 trunk lines. And we do not know what that cost is gonna be yet, so.
That's why I have that bolded there. We're still waiting on that number, so it's an unknown number at this point. You'll see that at the bottom in the green, if we select the one element of furnishings, we still have about 10.7 left in there. I don't know if that's going to be enough to cover this relocation, so we'll have to work through those details. The next line item there on this sheet is furniture. So you'll see there's two different numbers for furniture. One is at 682, one is at 581. Those numbers have been reduced from the first time we got some preliminary numbers. So the sheet that I gave you here, the way that our team went about putting those quotes together is that we met with all of the departments that are listed there. You'll see the Sheriff's Department, the DA, Child Service, Clerk of Courts, judges, courtrooms, all of those other elements that are in there on this sheet have identified the needs that tie back into this floor plan. So the floor plan that you have before you shows the locations of where the new furniture would be proposed to go into place on both floors. So there's, the yellow is the first floor, the one up on top with the multicolors is the second floor. Now, there's been some questions about reuse of furniture, so our team evaluated some of the furniture in these spaces that still have some life left in them. In child support, they're reusing some lateral files, they're reusing task chairs and guest chairs, and they're also reusing storage units in each private office. In the courts, they're reusing jury deliberation chairs, jury box chairs in the Bravo courtroom, task chairs behind the judge's bench in Alpha and Bravo, and then the non-court commissioner bench. Clerk of Courts reusing 5 sit-to-stand desks in workstations, storage pieces, and the DA is reusing break room chairs. So there's been a balance of reuse and balance of new. What you see before you is the floor plan, and kind of to give you, I didn't get these printed off because in color you wouldn't have been able to see it, but it's a good quality furniture system that has depending on the parts that are there, a 10 to 12 year warranty on the furniture that's inside these components. The pricing that's before you has been done through the state pricing for the counties, so it's already been competitively priced in regards to the state pricing. The better, or the best and the good, you'll see a difference of $100,000. There is not a reduction in the number of furniture pieces. What it talks about is that what you're changing is some of the different elements and features, like certain door locks that are on there and drawer locks that are on some of them. So the quality and the warranty have not been changed. It's just a matter of some of the features that are within those furniture that's there. So if it's selected to move forward with the good option, which is the 581, then you'll see that the remaining balance of the FF&E is just under 11 grand. And now we still have the $50,000 for an allowance for IT within those numbers that haven't been consumed, but I have a feeling that some of that will end up being utilized. So, questions on FF&E or the approach to that? Now, we will do a similar scenario of this when we do the renovation. We'll go department by department as to what can be reused. There is some of your spaces that obviously in the renovation, we'll have to identify some of the old furniture. There's some furniture that's just lived its life. There's some of it that's new. I mean, a lot of your furniture has lived its life, right, Jeremy? So.
That is correct.
Yeah. So any questions on that?
Is this going to go through the finance committee, or?
Well, the FF&E budget is been identified for you guys. It's already been allocated to you guys to approve, no different than the contingency that's there. So I don't know that this needs to go before finance. These funds have been allocated to this committee, unless you guys feel that something different than that, so.
Unless it goes above the budget.
Yeah, and we're not going above the budget.
So that's where maybe I'm confused. On the blue section, is that 90,000 above budget?
Yeah, and I'm not recommending that we do that. I'm saying that that's where we would, if you select the good option, where it doesn't have certain door locks and some of those elements, you're still meeting the quality standard that's there. The green would be the recommendation to stay under that budget, still getting the new furniture in all those spaces.
I understood that there was going to be a question of whether we're going to decide whether we do good or
Gotcha, okay. Yes,
best.
so
But
to your
we
point.
really don't have an option.
So to your point, if you would select that, you're over budget.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Good answer.
Questions?
I do have a question. Sheriff, is the desk that we're buying, the 76,000, is that included in here? Is that over and above this?
That is separate. That is a number that's coming out of the general fund.
That's what I thought, okay.
Above this, yep. Yep.
That's just for dispatch.
Yep, just the 4 dispatch consoles, yep. Yep. Is the rest of yours about to do, or the model? Or are you done?
No, I've got more with the contingency.
Okay.
One question that just came up. In your meetings that you're going to have with the department heads?
Yep.
I'm assuming some of this furniture may be for future expansion and growth? can we identify if it is and maybe not buy it now if
Sure.
we don't need to?
Yep, we could do that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with not putting a desk or chairs in an office that's not staffed.
Sure.
right?
Yeah, and I can tell you that when we did that last scenario for these departments, I think there were only a handful of offices that weren't occupied, maybe 3 or 4, but we can definitely look at that. Yep.
I mean, if nothing else, it gives us that additional allowance, you know?
Yeah.
Because things happen.
Correct.
you know?
Yep. Okay, I'm just looking for action. Do you want me to move forward with this? The other thing with the furniture is that because kind of a scheduling perspective, so our targeted substantial completion date is the end of October. Now, what I mean by the end of October is that at that point, it will be to the point where we can start shakedown. And what I mean by shakedown is that the sheriff will be able to start to move into the jail, and then they will start what I will call a test run. And the DOC requires that to be done for several weeks. We've seen it go anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. I like to tell everybody it's about 8. So what that means is they will have staff in the jail. They'll actually be functioning all the doors, they'll be functioning all the intercoms, they'll be functioning all the cameras to make sure that they work. And because of the layout of your facility, and obviously the secure corridor that's there, is that the occupancy of the court suite would have to go hand in hand with that, right? So until we get the jail shaken down, and that's all functioning, the staff can be working on, what needs to be moved, but the official move is going to be hinged on what happens with the jail when we occupy that. So in all reality, by the time you get that done after, 6 to 8 weeks, we're probably talking the end of the year, but it'll be substantially complete. So the furniture, from that perspective, when I talked to the team about duration, is that furniture would need to be placed here within the month of March so that we don't have any price increases, because obviously that happens in our world, but also lead times to be able to get it here for occupancy. So I would look for some direction today on what we want to do with the furniture. So.
May I ask the sheriff, how do you do this shakedown with a skeleton crew in the new facility and keeping the rest of the staff in the existing facility?
That's a good question. We have to keep this current jail fully staffed with inmates in there. I suspect, and I'll have to learn this, but I suspect that it'll be 8 hours a day,
Yep.
maybe 8, for that duration while we're shaking it down. It wouldn't be a 24-hour around-the-clock occupancy, but probably would have to have the 3 posts occupied in there just to see how they work together, which is 3 positions. So I suspect that, it'd be 3 to 4 people, 8 hours a day while we're shaking that down.
Yeah, you're gonna have some overtime.
Well, and you can coordinate that. Counties that we've dealt with, we've done it multiple ways. So we typically will have the integrator in there, the individual that's working on putting master control together with your staff that are in pod control to be able to work through those sequences. And that can be a couple of people that are trained, right? The sheriff is right. There is a period of time where you need to function it as though everything is working in coordinate. So from a scheduling perspective, it hasn't been too much of an issue. There is some additional hours, don't get me wrong, but it won't be a consistent group there for that period of 8 weeks. We can work through the details of how we get that training and how it's laid out. So your staff right now, they're writing new training procedures and everything as we speak. So a lot of that is tied in with the building. So.
But it's still eight weeks to
Yeah.
tie some staff
yeah.
up over there, yeah.
Yep. What you wouldn't want to do, it's kind of like seasoning the grill at the restaurant.
No, I think that, but.
You want to make sure it's working.
But this is like a lot of the projects when you build is that you don't anticipate.
Yeah.
It just, you may have the back of mind that it's going to be a situation you'll have to cover, but
Yep.
you don't put it on paper necessarily. May I ask a question that's maybe not directly related to some of these things? Where's the kitchen in this facility? I've
Right
been
here.
looking.
I'll show it to him. That'd be easier just to get up and.
Yeah, I've been looking through here, and I know my eyes aren't what they used to be, but
So this is, actually, it's backwards. Let me look here.
You actually can't see it on the
It's not
drawing.
It's not on the print.
Cut
Oh,
off.
it's not on, oh, that's why you can't see it.
Yeah, it's-
So, the kitchen is this area right here then.
Well-
In
And
the
then it's, and then
meantime,
it's just a loading
Mr.
dock
Chair.
here, so.
Yeah.
Are we gonna need a motion on?
Yeah.
We do.
To accept
To
the
accept,
good,
so
furniture
I'll do that. I'll
price.
make that
See, I have
motion.
a question real quick
Oh,
though, too,
we-
before,
okay.
to interrupt, just to make sure. So I'm just looking at this, so everything that's yellow on this one.
Yep.
But there's certain things that aren't yellow. So
Yep.
like, you've got the dispatch sergeant, it's not yellow. Are they not getting a desk, or is it just not yellow because someone missed it?
It's yellow. The dispatch sergeant is yellow on
Okay,
here.
on mine, it's not. It's like, on mine, it shows, like, part of the dispatch center, but the one.
Oh, it isn't.
dispatch
Yeah,
sergeant-
Where it's labeled is pointing to the other office.
Oh, that's
Pointing to
there.
the
That's
other-
where it's
okay.
labeled.
I was going
Well, and,
backwards.
and that's fine, and then like, so the
That's
detectives.
dispatch sergeant there.
Okay, detective storage, no shelving, anything that's going in there, or the lockers, is that not part of FF&E that's
Those,
going in?
the lockers are part of the bid, the main
Okay.
bid, yeah.
Dispatch sergeant's right there.
Oh. And then up in the courtrooms, like where it says the
That's
pews,
the dispatch sergeant's piece.
that one's not colored in, is that
Show me where you're talking.
in the courtrooms here? So you got pews,
Those are-
pews.
These are all part of the construction contract.
Okay, so it's outside of the outside of the fix. That's, I'm just wanting to make sure before they.
Nope, great questions.
Better now than later.
That's why I was on top.
Okay.
And your
so
motion would be
Go
to-
back to.
Can I ask
Oh, go ahead.
another question? This,
My question a little too fast.
going back to the kitchen,
Yep.
I'm always hungry, I guess.
No, that's fine. I mean,
The equipment that's going in that kitchen, that's not included in this
And that's what.
phase.
So that was, I probably was confusing you at the beginning. So we had a bid as part of the construction project that had all of the laundry and food service equipment part of that.
Okay.
When we were over budget, that's when we allocated it to the sheriff's budget. The sheriff's budget wasn't to the level of where we're at right now, so we're only using 200 and whatever the number is, 210,000 of FF&E to pay for that portion of the kitchen. It's more than that. It was like 360 or 370,000 that the sheriff is using his other fund to cover that. So at the end of the day, all the kitchen equipment and laundry service will be covered by either the sheriff's or the FF&E.
I see, okay.
Clear as mud, right?
so we actually have the 210 and he has 2,000 or 200,
Yeah, correct.
but
So there will be a stove and a refrigerator in there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Refrigerator's already there, so we're stuck with that, so.
want to try that
John?
again?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
go.
Motion is to use the good furniture at a total of $859,232.74.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried.
So the next one is, I'm going to show you the update on the contingency. Some small elements that are in there that dealt with existing conditions. The one at the bottom is the one that I want to focus on. It was the bigger number. So what this ties back to is the, what this ties back to on the $12,000 was there is a health, for the health offices. This was caught by the DOC and jail staff. There was some concern about the way the door was swinging into that because it happened in another county where one of the staff had been trapped by an inmate. So what happened, this was a recommendation, and we're moving forward with reworking the room so that the door actually swings outward, so that there isn't an opportunity for the individual to be trapped in that space, which did tie us back, sorry about that, which did tie us back into, we had to add an alcove, we had to rework some of the ceilings and the flooring changes that were in there, had to modify some of the grab bars, but it was a DOC requirement, so to kind of give you an update, and none of these did exceed the 25,000, so no action needed, but just an update on where we are. We are working on one other CB, just so you know. There was an oversight on having a janitor's closet on the second floor, so we're working at reconfiguring the layout on the second floor to give Jeremy a janitor's closet up there. It was an oversight, so we're working on some of those elements, so that'll be coming up. I don't know if we'll have the numbers for next month or if it'll be the following month, but just kind of let you know that is something we're working on. Other than that, project is moving along good in regards to schedule. Manpower and staff, we've been averaging anywhere from 75 to 100 tradespeople on site. Probably can't see them because they're indoors. If you haven't toured it, please tour it. Really coming together nicely in regards to walls are actually being painted and studs are up and rough ends and all those sorts of things. So that's coming along good. That's all I have for you, Dan. Unless you guys have questions.
Any other questions for Kurt? Tim?
The biggest update of all would be that we're on the new phone system. So we migrated over to Zoom on the 1st. We still have 4 lines in dispatch that are on the old system, as well as all the old fax machines. Problems encountered, we didn't get as many as we thought. For the most part, the number of desk sets that were deployed seems to be meeting need. We haven't had requests for any additional there. There's been a great deal of embrace from many individuals to apply the software on their own personal devices. There's been much discussion of stipend, but they're leaving that to a later date on the board. We'll begin looking at eliminating smartphones in April or later this month and start the process in April, letting people get their workflows figured out and make sure that we're accommodating there. We've got some training to do and some learning to do about some of the things we didn't expect. There are a few problems that we'll face over the next 6 months before we move into the new building. The biggest being dispatch. We don't think we'll have a problem making Zoom work with the dispatch phone system and the Vesta panels. There's going to be some way to make that work. How much effort and money is involved in that, we don't know yet. But other counties have been successful in that, so we're pretty sure we can get that done. The big concern that I don't know an answer to would be because the Zoom system, all the calls are encrypted, which is great because it makes us HIPAA compliant end to end. It doesn't work for recording systems. So we can record inside the Zoom system itself. So for all the jail lines and sheriff's lines that are currently recorded through Equiture, they're being recorded automatically through Zoom. So, and most of the response has been, we're fine with that, but that's not going to work for dispatch. So we're going to have to try and figure out a solution there. Dispatch, we want a more evidentiary sound system, so because those end up going out to defense attorneys and prosecutors every time, right? So we want to evaluate that, and then faxing. I have a solution in mind for faxing that will be a big savings over what we're currently doing, but there's going to be a lot of wailing and mashing of teeth in introducing a new way of faxing to people, because when you've been doing it the same way for a long time, it's very difficult to adjust to that. And it's not anyone inside the organization. It's not like they love faxing. It's just certain state and federal agencies still require you to submit to them via fax. So that's a problem we'll have to overcome in the coming months. We've got 3 or 4 more days of hypercare from Zoom. We're going to keep hammering on the issues that we've got, the smaller niggling details. I'll be working with them on the bill they charge annually. So any unused lines that I need to get credit for, I need to make sure it's set in advance, because I don't want to wait for a credit into 2024. That's not going to do my budget any good this year. And then I'll be working with the clerk's office so that they can submit the invoices out to the departments on a monthly basis for them to make their payments back into the system. Everything else was basically tabled for the last 2 weeks. We've been scrambling to keep up with tickets and making sure that this phone system is working properly, and so far so good. But now we'll have to start addressing the backlog of other projects, excuse me. That's about all I got.
Good work.
I've got a real easy question. How did Paul's voice change so drastically?
Yeah, I'm sure there are many Hispanic members of the community that are disappointed not to hear the lovely en español in Norwegian accent that Paul provided. It was one of their favorite things, but now it's all a computer. So. Some have chosen. There's some Australians and there's some British ladies and some American males. People are choosing the one that sounds the least computery to them.
Who chooses that?
The individuals can set your own voice message. You can pick your voice. And that did create a problem in the sheriff's office once because they were sure they had the wrong spot when an Australian male was asking them to leave a voice message. But they'll work it out.
This is English for the rest of it, but those are 6 people on yours.
Yeah, nobody chose the Welsh yet, so that.
Tim, did you have something on the spyglass program?
That is going to go to exec finance next, but I asked that we wait with that because of this Zoom transition. We're going to be eliminating a lot of services, and I wanted to make sure we got 100% of the gains from what we eliminate before we enter into any agreement with Spyglass. I don't want them getting 30% of the prize that we can eliminate on our own. So after giving it some thought after our last meeting, when she really described in detail what they do, discussed it with Paul and said, you can take it to exec finance whenever you'd like, but I don't think we should formally enter into agreement until we've isolated what we can take care of on our own.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anybody have a question for Tim? Thanks, Tim. Jeremy?
Good morning. Start off with the quick and easy things real quick. Staffing. As of Friday, my department, we made an offer after we had interviews last week. That person accepted. So my empty position will be filled. Actually, I think we're going to be, it's on the 23rd, so it'll be next Thursday because that's when the county is doing the audiogram, the hearing tests. So it just worked out to try to get them started then so they could get their hearing test at the same time. So that'll be nice. I also did confirm with, I think it's the Dodge dealership, the vehicle for my department should be ready next week. So I should have that here by, I don't know, beginning to mid-April, which will also be nice. A few things that I just talked to Kurt about that I'm going to be talking to Tad and the other Kurt and try to get some things taken care of and get some more clarification on. Just so that everyone here is aware, I don't know if you are or not, but when that building, the new building opens, the connection point between the two buildings will not be completed. So we will have two entrances, two separate buildings. If you're here to see the courtrooms, you're going to go to the new entrance. If you're here for social workers, you're going to go to where you currently go in now. The sheriff's aware of that too because he's going to have to look at staffing for that. And that, so that'll be something that he has to evaluate, which with Kurt, we need to figure out how long that's going to be, which will determined by the remodel schedule, because the connection can't be done until land management and health department is moved, and they can't be moved until the courtrooms, as it sits now, are remodeled to accommodate those two particular departments. So 6 months, 12 months is how long we have two entrances. We're not going to be exactly sure until those steps are taken care of, which will also be, like I said, not super convenient for staff if, courts need to bring their mail to Sam well, they're gonna have to come out that main door, go around the building, come into Sam, et cetera, stuff like that. So we'll be addressing that. The other issue that I'm trying to do is sit down with the company that's installing the badge reading for the new building to see if the current badges that we have now could work with the new system. Because right now, between the building here and the sheriff has a badge system out at his impound shed, the badges here work there. I need to see if the badges that we have here will work in the new building. If not, we might be carrying 2 badges for a short amount of time. The other issue is I know that there's going to be that fire break between the 2 buildings when it is completed. It will have a drop ceiling, so I can run conduit between the 2 buildings. Same with Tim or whatever if he needs to. But that's not going to be set up until, the connection is made for the most part. The other concern I have then is there's a fire alarm system in this building. There'll be a fire alarm system in the other building. There'll be no staff in this building 24/7, but I have no way to backfeed the fire alarm from this building into the new building. So who's going to be monitoring the fire alarm in this building until that connection is made? So those are some of the other things that we're going to have to be figured out here over the next few weeks to months. Also, the sidewalk, when they are completed, they'll be pouring a sidewalk that'll connect to where you go out the quick trip door now, that'll run all the way up to the residential section. It's scheduled to be a 5-foot sidewalk. I would like to have a 6-foot or wider sidewalk so that my skid steer fits down it and doesn't tear up the dirt and lawn on either side. The cost of adding an additional 12 to 24 inches of sidewalk will be negated after about 3 years of me buying yards and yards of black dirt and seed and refilling out everything that my skid steer ties up or destroys this time of year when everything is mush and I sink 2.5 feet into the lawn when I accidentally touch it. So again, I'm just letting you know everything that I gonna have to spend money on and just giving you guys a heads up on that. I'll also be looking at getting the contact information for the furniture company for like the desks that he was showing you, because like was mentioned, if we don't buy all the desks now and we have an empty office, well then in a year, 2 years when we do fill that, I would like to be able to purchase matching, because that's a lot of what we have here is I have a hodgepodge of different grays and whites and colors and stuff to make everything work. It's functional, it's just not always aesthetically pleasing, or they don't quite fit together right. So and again, I'm still trying to figure out budget for next year because prices of everything keep going up, and I'm looking at how many bathrooms we're going to have over there, how much stuff I'm going to end up having to buy. So again, I'm just bracing everyone that it looks like my budget will be about 115% higher next year than this year. And that's because of staffing. I'll be adding another custodian at some point this year because I am on the agenda for personnel bargaining at their next meeting to start the process for a new custodian. All of the sundries that I buy for the building, the prices have gone up, every year. Chemicals, I'm going to have more of that, plus a bunch of other stuff. So that next year's purchasing is going to be substantially higher. So I'm just kind of bracing you guys for that because it's not like I can offset the cost of my department with any revenues that I have other than the $60 a year I get from recycling cans. So other than that, nothing else too. No major catastrophes this month. The generator was down again for about 3-4 days, as we had some rodents that had chewed through some wires, and I made sure that IT was aware, the jail was aware, 911 was aware for those few days until we got the issue corrected. And that is the other thing I'm still waiting on, which Tim is also waiting on the information for too, is the day that the time that we need to do the switch over for the new generator for this building, because we're going to end up having to disconnect power to this building for however long. It will run off another generator as far as I know while they make the transfer, but I just still need to know when that's going to happen for scheduling reasons. So
You have
Lots
any
of
idea
stuff.
when that new generator will be arriving?
No, I've put out the request a few times, but I haven't gotten any solid dates on anything. It was, the last I got was the contractor, which I'm assuming is B&B, and then maybe Fabric Cat had another meeting to try to, hash some things out. So I don't have any solid plans, but again, it'll be this year, and that'll be a substantial interruption to the building, but hopefully that'll be taking place in the evening or over a weekend. But we just have to make sure that 911 is prepared, the jail is prepared, stuff like that, so.
Is Kurt know your interest in a 6-foot sidewalk?
I just mentioned it to him.
You did.
And then I've mentioned it to Tad in previous weeks. So again, once I go through that, it's either going to be in this process, and then he would come to you with one of these changes that he brings you now, or it's going to be a future capital project that I bring to you guys, which will end up costing more in the long run, going that route. So it'll be up to you to determine which course you want to go. I'm just kind of presenting you with stuff that I'm going to be pushing for.
What is the distance between the curb and the new building? Any
It
idea?
should be the same that's here now, which is like 49 inch, or between the street and the edge of the sidewalk.
Street,
So, because like right now on this side, it's like 46 inches from the curb, and then there's 46 inches of dirt and lawn, and then sidewalk. On this side of the building, when I removed the sidewalk over there, I just had the whole sidewalk. It's a 7.5 foot wide sidewalk, which is very convenient. I did try to have them do over here when they tore everything up to redo the storm drain system, but they wouldn't do it at that point, so.
So what is it over here?
Right now, this sidewalk is a 5 foot wide sidewalk. 5 foot wide sidewalk, and then like I said, 40 some odd inches between the edge of the sidewalk and the curb. So it's about 2 mower widths back
Is
and
it-
forth.
does the planned sidewalk bump up against the building?
No, if you go out and look now, the way that the sidewalk is now, it's, 20 feet away from the building.
Yeah.
Then a sidewalk, and then 4 feet from the sidewalk to the street.
Okay.
If you just look now, the sidewalk should match up to what it is and just continue all the way up to the residential street, or the residential sidewalks.
So if we upgraded that, the other would be,
Have to be eventually brought up to match.
Well, there's an action, there's a reaction.
Yep. But again, like I said, you go out and look too, and everything is just tore up this time of year too. But it happens every year, regardless of whether it's me or a business, or another business. You can see the pieces of lawn torn up, and our grass is killed off because of salt and everything else, so. I've got nothing else substantial unless you have any other questions for me at the moment.
No other questions? Thanks, Jeremy. Discussion/action regarding televising and recording all meetings. And Kevin's here, and did we have any consensus on this the last time?
That's what I stand on.
My point.
Yeah, I think we just tabled it for this meeting.
You have anything to contribute at this point?
Yeah, so I'm just kind of looking at what we're doing currently. So right now we cover 7 committees or boards. So we have the ELU, PTED, Exec Finance, UW Extension, ADRC, Personnel and Property, also the County Board. And then another thing to also keep in mind, we'll be moving, to the new county boardroom, and I'm assuming most of the meetings will be over there in November. So kind of whatever decisions you make eventually, we probably won't be in this room much past October, November. And then there's going to be more meeting rooms as well. We tend to schedule the meetings in like 1 or 2 hour blocks, so they can fit into our programming schedule. And so if the meetings go over, they do kind of cut into our programming a little bit. So that's just something we have to deal with. And then again, we could refer this issue to our UW Extension Committee, which is our oversight committee. So that's all I got.
And I'm assuming that the decision, if and when we get to a decision, will have to be the full board, because this will cost money. I look at the service that we provide to the citizens as a very positive, very popular service, but nobody seems willing to make a decision on how much of county business are we going to televise, and, currently, personnel, the staff on hand is I'm hearing probably not adequate for what we're expecting them to accomplish. So I'll throw this out for discussion now.
Well, I did talk to the Human Service Board last meeting, and I thought I had it figured out how we could at least start a half hour earlier, but then I find that there was a problem with that. So one of the board members is working at a job that he can't get off any earlier, and the retired people who are on the board, it's not so much of a problem. These were the citizen members except for one, and she is working, and she could budge about a half hour, but that's about it. So the goal was to try to make that one work, but I didn't make any headway, I'm afraid. And I think anytime you involve citizens, the health department's a primary example of the citizens on that board. I think at least two of them are working, professional people, and they will find it difficult, I'm sure, to change.
Well, and it seems like historically, county government has been set up around people who are retired or self-employed. And, I've heard complaints about that for over 40 years. But we haven't made any progress in adjusting our schedule on how to deal with that. And I don't know, you'd think if it was doable, we would have done it by now. I'm hoping we've explored other possibilities, but I don't know.
But I think you point out, I think in the past, the meetings have been by and large set to the needs of the retired people, and not necessarily to the public as a whole, which is unfortunate. That certainly does limit those who may consider running for public office.
Well, I was pleasantly surprised with this last election because we had an influx of younger generation. I don't want to say less mature, but just younger. And it's nice to see the interest, because for many years it was as if the younger generations didn't have any interest in county government, and I'm happy to see that there is some interest. But now we have this issue,
But
You've seen what's happened since. We've lost two of those younger ones.
That's right. They they could not adjust their lifestyle or their work style to meet the needs of county government.
Well, I think in the long term, in the future, we need to maybe make these adjustments. Up to this point, we've left the meeting times, with the exception of the broadcasting situation we're talking about here. It's been up to the committee in terms of when they want to schedule their meetings. And obviously, if they are people who are self-employed with some bit of flexibility and retired, they're going to go for day meetings. But in the future, as they decide their meeting times, if we have people who are working, who need to be at their job during the day, they will have to become flexible and move to a later time that works for everybody. I think that's been, Paul, if I'm not mistaken, that's been kind of the history, that the board or the committee set their own schedule. And it's been my understanding that is, if you have someone who can't make it during the day, they're going to have to bend and try to schedule it so that all members can be present.
So Chair, just some more comments. The televising and recording, it's kind of two different things. So one needs to look at the charter of the department that televises stuff for the county and say, is it their part of their charter to make sure that all county government meetings and committees are televised and recorded? Since COVID, I think that's been kind of an assumption, but I don't know if that's necessarily accurate on what we want that department to do. And I say that because there's other technology, as I've mentioned before, that could be employed such that things are recorded and made public such that people could join if they would so choose. You don't have to necessarily turn on your TV and go to TCC channel 865 or whatever it is, I don't know, and listen. You can log into your computer, go to a technology that makes it available. That would need to be explored, and I guess we would need to, solicit the help of other departments to help us decide whether that's what options do we have. But maybe you can.
Yeah, and just looking at the, as far as the future goes, the new building will have like all the new meeting rooms, and they should be all Zoom capable. Assuming not every single meeting's going to be in the new county boardroom, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's kind of up to you guys as far as where the meetings will be in the new building. But it does sound like all the meetings or all the meeting rooms should be in a more technological state when we get over there. So there should be more capabilities to not have to bring all this equipment over there. They should be kind of built in.
Well, I think, reduce this to lowest common denominator, the way I see it, we can't televise all meetings.
Well, I think that's what we need to define on.
The way things are now.
Correct. Via television and broadcasting on the channel, we can't. You're correct. With using that technology.
And with the current staff.
Right.
So, explain to me again the technology that we would have to use to get away from this issue?
So I'm not an expert at IT, but I've used the technology. Zoom is one. We all have our tablets. Every committee member has a tablet. They all have cameras. We can join via a Zoom call from anywhere that we have internet access currently today. We would need to employ additional technology through Zoom or some other medium to be able to go live and post on our website along with the schedule on whenever the meetings are happening, which is easily scheduled. And whenever we start a meeting, anybody on the committee can join that meeting and start a recording, which is also then broadcast live to anybody who wants to go to our website, look at which meetings are meeting where, click on it, and bam, just like when I watched the Whitehall basketball, tournament, yay, I did it online. We could do the same thing so that we don't even have to worry about our staff in the television section having to be part of the meeting every time. We should look at that. I know there's probably some cost to that. I don't know how much it is. I'm sure it's fairly inexpensive rather than hiring another staff member or whatever, so.
Yeah,
Can you comment
yeah,
on the
that-
cost, Tim?
The cost would be based on the level of professionalism with which the video was to be recorded and distributed. We could have no additional cost with some training and use of the existing equipment, and you could do that. I can't guarantee that the end product would be something that anybody would see as, something to want to look at, but
In terms of a recording,
what
right?
you're seeing up there on the screen, you get the nice logo in the corner telling you what meeting is and the date. You're not going to have any of that if you're just sending it out through a Zoom meeting and doing your recording from that. But yeah, it could be anything from zero to thousands of dollars, depending on what you choose. I think ease of use would be the most important factor to consider, that whatever rooms we have set up, it should be easy for the board members themselves to initiate the meeting, initiate the recording, and end it when it's necessary. And for the new Justice Center, I think there will be the possibility that you can set meetings in those spaces and not have a problem. So your new boardroom and several of the meeting rooms in the new Justice Center will have that capacity.
Thanks for that. Yeah, well, where do you suppose we go from here?
I'd like us to look at whether the option with Zoom or another provider is a better option than using our own television studio. So how do we don't need to have a resolution to do that, right? We just
Well, I don't think
ask
so.
somebody to help us figure out, okay, who schedules the meetings? I'm assuming Outlook can be the way we schedule the meetings, and it's broadcast on our website. Somehow our website would need to get updated when the meetings are. Is it on there now, Paul?
Yeah.
Is there a link
On the
in there
website?
now?
You go to live stream, click on it, watch it.
But that's
Yeah.
live seating through our studio, right? So we would have to look at what would it take to get that link to show Zoom, for example.
What about the people that don't have it? Or the older generation,
Yeah,
do watch them.
like me.
Now, you'd have to find some way to also record that for posterity, so to speak, so someone could pull it up later.
Yeah, we
Whoever
could,
initiates the meeting.
and we could always play it later on our channel, like during other blocks, stuff like that, once we.
But you'd have to switch that over to the channel,
Yep, yeah. like it would-
somehow
it
get
would-
that in there.
It would record as a file, and then we could take that file and then put it into our system, and
okay.
then schedule it later on. So people would still be able to watch it
Which is
later.
actually optimal, because you could have it play at the same time, the same week every month, regardless
Mhm.
of when the meeting takes place.
Oh, yeah, you could pull it up any time. Is that what you're saying?
No, he could say, every Monday at 8:30, we're gonna play the property committee meeting,
Oh, sure.
regardless of when we choose to meet.
Oh, sure, he can
Right,
schedule,
so-
put in his schedule. his,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
viewing schedule.
So people who are used to seeing it at whatever time, then, oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
still
simple for
on.
you because you set everything up ahead of time,
Yep.
correct? Yeah.
Sam brings up some pertinent issues. What about those people who don't have internet? What about those people that don't have the wherewithal to make their way through technology? What about the public comment period? The open meetings, so on and so forth. I guess we need to do a little research from the legal end, and I think that could be readily solved. But some of the issues are, in this county, internet is not something that's available to everybody. There's issues that, from the way I understand it anyway, that we're trying to deal with the broadband issue, because not every household has the option of paying for internet or receiving it.
I just remember, anybody who has access to TCC now and would watch it on the channel would have access to internet.
Understood. But I don't know what the figures are now. I knew what they were 20 years ago as to households in this county that actually
Now, maybe Kevin,
receive TCC.
maybe Kevin knows that. Do you know the numbers?
I would have to look at it again. They send it to us. I don't know offhand, but
Okay.
I mean, people can still come to the meetings. I think there's also a way you can actually call with a phone into the meeting. You wouldn't be able to see anything, but you should be able to hear the meeting. I think that's correct, right? People can call into the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we can have up to 300 participants with our
That
licenses.
should cover it.
I would think so, unless you guys get a lot more popular. I think you're gonna have to juice these meetings up a little
Or
bit
lot
with some.
more unpopular.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if Dan were to jump in a lake fully clothed, it wouldn't get that kind of viewership, so.
I can think of a couple instances where we generated maybe 100 or 200 meeting attendees, but they were pretty volatile, and hoping I never get to see another one.
I think we're doing all of our best to try to get as much as we can.
Yeah.
You know, we're never gonna have, 100% of the population have a cell phone and internet. That's just not gonna happen. So
Right.
we're trying to do the best we can with the technology that we
Meet
have.
them.
And I honestly think moving to an internet-based solution rather than our own television studio is gonna reach more people, not less.
I guess I agree with you on that. That's my assumption. Yes, Tim?
I would like to point out, there's an old axiom in IT is don't change two things at once, because you don't know what the impact of each change is if you do it at the same time. We have a massive amount of change coming in the next six months from now, and it's going to impact your meeting schedules, it's going to impact your meeting spaces, how you're going to be delivering content to individuals. If you try to reinvent this process over the next 6 months, one, your resources are going to be limited because the TV studio and the IT department already have a full agenda. And trying to find new ways to do things is not going to be high on our list, because we're going to be trying to make sure we have a smooth transition into the new facility. Then once the new facility's up, you got about 5-6 months of figuring out which end is up. And at that point, I think it would be no problem to transition to a new way of distributing content from meetings to the citizens. Now, we can certainly talk about the issue as much as you'd like and start making preparations for how we'd like to see that, but I'd strongly advise you to not pick a new way of doing it right now, because you will drive my staff right up the wall.
Well, I appreciate that statement, and hearing that, perhaps we should table this for, I'm going to say 18 months, because if what Kurt Berner said actually occurs and we get the building turned over to us in October, early November, and then we've got 6 months to, it's going to be July of 2024 before we shake our heads and wonder where the heck we are.
At the same time, what direction do we want to give Kevin now in terms of what he does do? Just keep doing what you're doing as best you can, and
Unless I hear a good argument from Kevin, that was going to be my suggestion. I've been getting nothing but pleasant comments about what you're producing so far. So unless Kevin's got something to add to that, that would argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Tim. I think it's probably best to wait until we move, and then once we move and we kind of get situated, then make some big changes if we need to. But to make a change just for the temporary, I don't think would be really great, because we're going to be moving allegedly, this fall. So Even, stuff that happens in here, it's like we might not use this room ever again. So it's hard to really make, some really concrete plans for the future in this room when we might not be using it, ever again for meetings. So I think Tim's right.
And technology may advance somewhat between making a decision and being able to implement the decision, so maybe we'd be better off doing our research on where we're going to go with this, when we go with it.
For now, could we get the highway in here? I'd like to see the highway. That wouldn't affect you, or does it? If highway would meet here, it'd mean another day that you'd have to.
Well, they could meet here,
They don't,
Pardon me?
they don't have to record how it's in.
As long as we're borrowing $5 million a year to take care of the highway, it'd be nice to have them on.
Yep.
So all they have to do is meet here and sit out at.
Yep.
Well, that's up to the chair of that committee to decide where they want to meet, right?
you're on the committee.
I am on that committee.
Do you want to advance Doc's wishes here?
Sure, I
I
can
think
do
that's
that.
a good point he's
Be
making.
happy to, it
You know,
did kind of come up after the last property committee meeting, and I must say, it was not greeted with universal glee and positivity, but
well,
we'll bring it up again.
you're in between commissioners, so that voice won't be
Be a
heard.
perfect time. Can do. Highway meets tomorrow morning, so I'll bring it up.
Okay.
I think we can, what I hear most of us are saying is we would like to have as much out on the air as, so to speak, as possible, and that hopefully make that accessible to as many people as we can. So that would be our goal as we look towards the future. And you're suggesting not discussing this for perhaps another year now.
Well,
A little over a year.
we can discuss it as much as we want, but
Well,
I think we need to listen to those people who know what they're talking about, and I think it's going to be at least 18 months before we're in a spot with the new building, before we can make an intelligent and decision that might do the best for the public. Any other comments or questions regarding this issue? If not, let's move on to discussion/action on meeting room policy and security. Meeting room rental charges.
Dan,
Yep,
I got quarter to 10 again, so if you.
Go.
If you want,
go.
there's another item. on
Yes.
there.
Let's go to 10B, meeting with Security and Facilities Committee.
Sure. Yep. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm not sure what you're wanting. I wasn't at the last meeting to know what it is you're asking, other than being at the Security and Facilities Committee meeting, understanding that this committee wanted the Security and Facilities Committee meeting to look at the issue of courthouse security and screening for employees.
Correct, and if I remember correctly, which I may not, the last meeting, the issue was, we needed input from you and the Security and Facilities Committee on how we handle security and screening in the new building, and the changes with entrances with the existing building. My assumption is that there should probably be somebody from the Property Committee on your Security and Facilities Committee. I don't know, is there somebody now?
The board chair is on the committee.
Is John able to attend meetings with regularity? Do you remember?
For the most part, he does.
He wasn't at
This
the last
just
one,
was
but the
mixed
time
up.
before he was there.
Yeah.
But there's no one from the property committee on,
That's my understanding.
because he's the only board member on that, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
Uh,
You would ask for a recommendation from the Security Facilities Committee on employee screening. So I think that's what we were supposed to report today.
Well, I remember that last time, there was one particular court case that we decided to screen everybody coming in. We did a horrible job in communication, and the kickback from the employees was unexpected and unbelievable. It was pretty much negative across the board. And I think historically, in my own mind, we need to screen everybody at some point in the future. So I know that's not going to be met with acceptance, 100% acceptance, maybe not even in this committee, but it's certainly not going to be met with acceptance in the building. So what are your thoughts, Judge?
Our committee met last month and talked about this issue about screening, and the vote was a unanimous vote to recommend that all individuals entering the courthouse be screened. And the logic or thought behind that is that weapons screening, when people can access the courthouse, is about being able to control the reactivity of somebody who's unhappy. So if somebody's unhappy with a particular case, or even another department that's having to do with the courthouse, well, in the moment of being angry, go out to the parking lot, get a weapon, and come right back in. Obviously, that's the concern why there's weapon screening today in the courthouse. And the question is, does that extend to employees? And the committee felt the recommendations from other trainings supported that, as well as just seeing it in the news. I think recently there was somebody in California who was a current or former employee who I think brought a weapon in. And I don't know the details of that, but I just, you see it, and I think it's a concern. The other question that we had some debate on was, what about after hours? And that's usually the question. Well, somebody could come into work, hide a weapon, and then come back the next, after hours, they come in and do that, and then come in the business day. I think that fits kind of into you're never going to stop everything. If somebody's going to plan to do something and watch somebody's steps and watch where they park and watch where they live, that's unfortunately, I hope something like that doesn't happen, but I don't think you can stop everything. The idea was the reactivity of it. And so the committee briefly discussed about what do you do after hours, and the thought was, we don't have enough people at the table here. This would impact a lot of different departments, and we don't even know every department's activities that are outside of the business hours, and we don't want to make a recommendation specific to that because we don't want to interfere with that. So our recommendation was that this committee establish an after-hours policy, which I imagine it would anyway, but the recommendation would be to establish an after-hours policy that addresses and takes into account all of the different departments' issues that are here after hours, but yet trying to maximize security, and for during business hours that all individuals be screened.
Well, I think I'm fairly confident, in my opinion, that statistically nationwide, that supports the need to screen everyone. There's a significant percentage of events that are precipitated by employees. You can't ignore that. We can work on the policy for after hours, and I think currently that centers around staff availability and money, just like everything else.
Yeah, I think we should just be realistic to do what we can, where budgets can support. As an example, I'm sure that there's counties that have county facilities that are not such as ours, where it's all at one place. We have that luxury. So to that extent, we should do everything we can because we are all one building. But other places, there's Department of Human Services that have their own building. They have no security whatsoever. It's just like going to a doctor's office or somewhere, some other public office facility where they don't have security. So to the judge's point, do what we can where we should, where it makes absolute sense to do it because we have the ability to do that, so.
Thank you. We will move forward with this and try to develop a policy for after-hours security. We don't have all the players in the room today that need to be involved, so
It makes sense to have a policy that, you know, if someone's coming in, they have to notify their supervisor, department head, so we know when they're gonna be there, something along those lines, and at least you have tracking of, or a policy that says if someone's not following policy, that there could be retribution, so.
But I think another item that would have to be taken care of, and I think we have the ability to do that with this new entrance, plus we do have two sheriff's deputies that are present some of the time, that as you have the influx of employees coming in at the same time, that they may be able to split that work up between two deputies so as to not slow the entryway of people. Right now, they just flow in due to the fact they do have a pass. They can get in, just like the board members, without going through the security clearance, but they'll have to work that out when the time comes.
Jeremy.
So when it does come to the after-hours stuff, the badge system, I can track, I can limit when people come and go. Again, devil's advocate for some of it, because I did say, you know, other people do come in and out of the building quite a bit. Social workers do come in and out on the weekend and in the evenings, but sometimes I don't think they have a lot of forewarning to notify maybe, you know, their supervisor or notify me, because they're getting calls at, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night that there's an issue that they have to go take care of or something. So some of that stuff can't always be prearranged. So it would be a little difficult, I think, to limit certain people at certain times, but I do have the ability to make it so badges work only at certain times for certain people with the current system that I have now. So I have to assume that the new system, being a newer system, would have the same, if not more, features for me to be able to do stuff like that. The only other issue that you're looking at now is the stuff that I presented earlier, now that you'll have 2 entrances for an extended period of time. And yet, yes, you do have 2 deputies now at the front door, but are you only going to have 1 deputy at each door now for a certain period of time while that happens, you know, until that gets shifted into 1 entrance? Other than the exception of on a heavy court day or jury selection, then they might put another deputy at the main entrance because you have quite a few people coming through. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, but it's maintenance too. Yeah, I would like to see everybody screened, but are you starting that at 7:30 so that you're catching employees coming in, or are you just starting at 8 o'clock and it's everyone that comes through at business hours so that you catch the person that's upset from court or upset with their social worker during business hours going out and coming back in?
Well, Dan pointed out that historically there are workplace shootings from time to time, and I think the one that seemed to hit the press over the years was post office shootings. And the shootings are primarily employees or ex-disgruntled employees, I think. So I think that the idea of starting at 7:30 seems like that may be a direction that we have to seriously look at or
And then that's
move
something that
towards.
would need to get set into place so that I could make it so people's badges don't work until then. Because you do have some people that come in at 7 a.m. to have coffee with their coworkers or
And
whatever
get a good
for,
parking spot.
however long. So then that would have to be a policy.
That's not gonna be a problem, Lauren.
Yeah, well, and that would just have to be a policy set in place. So your shift starts today, you can't really come in until 7:30. That way I can make the badges not work, but with the exception of IT or social workers or whoever would need access to the building.
Well, the fact that you can control each and every one would take care of most of that.
Yeah,
most
it
of
would
the
just,
issues.
like, right now, it would be, if you change that today, it's gonna take me probably a week to go through the 200 and some odd, 300 badges that are in the system to limit each one individually. So if we do that going forward, then it will be something I do as I set each badge up.
And
so.
that's a policy could,
Yeah.
make that happen, yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy. Meeting room rental charges.
Did you bring your policies with?
No,
I'm guessing everybody didn't, so I made extras.
thank you.
Because it's the policy also. So if there's stuff in there that should be changed.
Anybody else wants one? There's extras.
I think we should add what rooms are available and the occupancy limit of each room,
Yes.
because we may not want every room to be available. Even if it's considered a meeting room, we maybe want certain ones not to be able, I don't know.
What do we realize in revenue through meeting room charges?
Not a lot. Probably less than $1,000 a year.
How much?
Less than 1,000. I bet you it's even less than 500.
I have a question on that, then. Just out of
$20
curiosity,
has been $20 for 40 years.
just out of curiosity from my department, if, let's say you get $800 a year, where does it go?
General fund.
Is there a way that it would, because why wouldn't it go into either my utilities, because it's the electricity that I pay, the water that I pay, or the staffing for my guys to clean and prep the roofs beforehand?
It could, it's a standalone by itself.
Again, that was just me just curious to where it went. so.
It just goes to general fund.
Since I don't make any revenue, that could be like gold for me, so.
$500.
Yeah.
What is that, a quarter of an ounce?
Yeah.
I bet you now, when Sam.
Oh, with $40.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume over the past 3 or 4 years, it's probably not a lot, but prior to,
I charge $150.
yeah, prior, 4 or 5 years ago, there was more things that I would get notified for between the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the homemakers, the people and all that other stuff, but yeah, lately, there's not very much.
How do we want to move forward with this? Yeah, I think the $20 needs to be revisited. That's,
Well, we used to have people
Kinda
come
stale.
in, a private individual will come in and have their Tupperware party, in one of the rooms, and sell Tupperware. Of course, they only had to pay $20 for the room,
yeah.
but we haven't had any of those for a long time.
But it
I
says
think
you
maybe
can't-
when C30 started.
But it says something here about profit making.
Yeah,
So
that's not allowable.
They wouldn't be coming in anyway.
Well, it's under number 6 in the priority, private entities or individuals.
But it says here-
Private business.
But it says no meeting will be allowed to be held in the facility.
Look at that.
Political, religious, or profit making.
Conduct profit-making activity.
For the purpose of it being more political than it needed.
Well,
So that takes care of it.
I got rid of the Tupperware lady anyway then. She's out.
I'll go to Rubbermaid next.
Well, then maybe that number 6 shouldn't even be there. Nobody can, private entities.
Well, I mean, a 501c3 is a private entity, so you're gonna not let the,
It's a nonprofit.
yeah, nonprofits. Can't let the Trempealeau County Fair come in here and have a meeting?
Yeah,
We don't get charged, and we
It
don't
needs some
charge
work,
them.
and I think needs some attention from the county's corporation council.
It
to
would
make
only
sure
be
that
number
it's,
6.
There you go.
In terms of the fee, though, I mean, let's all
You
agree
could easily double that.
easily.
Go to 40,
Yeah,
I was thinking
Or
50
50?
in my mind.
50's fine with me.
50's fine with me, too.
Just doubled our revenue.
One fell swoop.
Won't get over the 1,000 yet.
Yeah.
You're making a lot of assumptions on this.
Hey, for a few rolls of toilet paper. That's all I'm saying.
When you do your budget, because this item doesn't even actually have a budget for revenue.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you put it in yours,
I'll get with you on that later, then, because
Just don't overinflate it, though.
I'll spend it all on advertising.
Well,
So, I mean, if you want to work on the policy more, I mean, you can make the motion to change
Can we
the
put it on
rent
next
for now,
month's?
but
Yeah.
then,
Now, as we move towards a new building, things may change because of security issues, access, and so forth. Right now, of course, this is during open hours, though. This policy is during 8 o'clock to 4:30, so.
I think it says that in there someplace.
Yeah, but there was.
Yeah, in the hours.
There was discussion about county employees who have access, bringing people in to have meetings after hours.
And that we use the Fair Board as an example, because 2 members of their Fair Board are county employees. So that's how they got in after hours. Jeremy didn't have to unlock the doors. They just let them in. Once the 2, it was Kellen Nelson and David Lingen are on the Fair Board
So that still occurs.
once a year.
well, let's change it from $20 to $50, and then I'll meet with Corp Counsel to have him start looking at this, and we can put it on the agenda for next meeting. Can have Corp Counsel's input, and the committee can take this month to ruminate on how this should look.
Yeah. that's
Any
a good idea.
additions or subtractions.
It's a good idea. Have it on the agenda next month and come back with inputs from all of us.
Yep.
One comment, though, too, since the 2 buildings aren't going to be connected for quite a while after, I am thinking that county board will still be here rather than over in the new,
That's a possibility.
so.
For what purpose? That room, from what I understand, the new boardroom will be set up with televising capabilities as soon as that building's open. That decor room or whatever it is called right now. So that, once the building opens, that room should be able to televise from that room on day 1.
Let's deal with that issue when the time
Later.
comes.
Okay.
Items for next meeting's agenda, well, we have one. I think we're safe putting Samuel's Group and Venture Architects on the agenda. IT department updates, maintenance department updates. Meeting room rental charges. Anybody else have anything that needs to go on there?
Are you going to continue the entrance policy? Are you guys going to continue to work on it? I just asked because at the start of the opening of it, the new building, are we just gonna keep doing what we've been doing, or is that gonna be the start?
Well, I think we need to include, well, at least the sheriff in any discussion regarding that policy, since currently it's his personnel that staff it. We can put it on the agenda and hopefully he can attend.
I mean, I guess I just am questioning, is this something that the committee is going to continue to look at in changing the policy or not changing it? Because if you are going to change it, a policy takes at least 3 months to work through all of the committees. And if you want that to start when the new building opens, you would have to have your decision on what you're going to do.
Historically, now would be a good time to come to a decision on security and screening in order to have it go through all the channels in a timely fashion. So we can put that on the agenda as well, please, and thank you.
Stands to reason that since we're having a lot of change around that time, that makes sense to have a change with regard to security and screening, you know.
And I think we need to, well, I know we need to do a better job with communicating whatever our intent will be to the employees in advance. It's not a good idea to have them show up that day and, oh, by the way, you're getting screened. They get kind of testy.
I think we've, been listening to those of us speak here, I think we have in mind what we want to do. So it's a matter to maybe make it, be a little more articulate about it, so that it gets out to the other staff. And then if it has to move to committees, other committees, we can start that next month.
As far as writing the policy, who would do that?
I don't know, what are you doing?
I am not a committee member. I'm just an observer here.
Good.
And Paul, how does that usually work? Doesn't somebody have to usually write it up? I don't know how that would work, because there really isn't, it's the board that decides it, so somebody's gonna have to write it if you guys were to change the current policy.
I would say for next month, then you want to probably make sure you'd have Rick and Brett here at the meeting to go over the policy, so you guys have it hashed out to send to whoever the next committee would be at that point.
Well, maybe Corp Counsel, we can lean on him to write the resolution.
Well, since he's standing in as the HR director right now, and he is our corp counsel, I can't think of a better person that would help us revise that policy.
So he can be here also.
I will speak to him about that along with the meeting room policy and anything else that pops up. Let's check the calendars for the next
The 10th,
date and time. April 10th, you say?
yes.
8:30 work for
Yes.
people?
Yeah.
That sounds good to me. With that, I will adjourn this meeting at 10:18 a.m. Thank you, one and all.